A separate strike last week left two survivors, one from Colombia and the other from Ecuador, who were quickly repatriated by the U.S. Both countries are known to export more drugs than Venezuela does, and the vast majority of illicit drugs entering the United States, and virtually all of the fentanyl linked to overdose deaths among Americans, are trafficked along the Pacific coast or by land from Mexico, according to U.S. government and UN experts. Venezuela is generally used as a conduit for cocaine produced and trafficked by Colombian guerrilla groups, primarily the ELN. Since early September, when the U.S. military began killing people at sea as part of Trump's enhanced counter-narcotics activities, administration officials have disclosed 8 strikes accounting for more than 30 deaths. The Trump administration has not, however, made public any evidence verifying its claims that the targets of those attacks were confirmed drug smugglers or that the boats involved were in fact carrying illicit drugs. Colombia's president, Gustavo Petro, has accused the U.S. in one instance of attacking a fishing boat in his country's territorial waters and killing a Colombian citizen. AI icon. Trump responded angrily, baselessly labeling Petro an illegal drug leader and saying the U.S. government would sever all aid to the country, a long-standing military partner in the region. Before Wednesday's operation in the Eastern Pacific, all of the previously disclosed strikes were launched exclusively in the Caribbean Sea. The targets included what Trump and others in his administration contend are criminal organizations linked either to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, whom Trump has accused of sending violent criminals and deadly drugs to the United States, or a Colombian guerrilla group known by the initials ELN. In the face of mounting questions about the legality of its deadly military campaign, the Trump administration has sought to justify the killings by claiming the United States is in armed conflict with Latin American drug cartels responsible for poisoning Americans, describing such groups as terrorist organizations. Trump insisted again on Wednesday that we have legal authority where we're allowed to do that. Former U.S. officials and law of war experts have described the strikes instead as unlawful killings, describing the victims as alleged criminals, not combatants engaged in an armed conflict with the United States. In virtually all other drug interdictions before last month, the suspects were stopped by U.S. authorities, primarily the Coast Guard, and detained by U.S. law enforcement and charged. Trump in recent days also has authorized covert CIA operations in Venezuela, and U.S. aircraft have flown in the vicinity of the Venezuelan coast, fueling anxiety, both there and across Washington, that he may be setting the table to forcibly remove Maduro from power. Some people familiar with the U.S. campaign in Latin America have said the flurry of activity amounted to psychological warfare intended to promote fractures within the Venezuelan armed forces or persuade Maduro to step down, though Trump has said nothing to dispel concerns that the United States could launch a full-scale military operation. The most recent U.S. attacks have challenged the administration's assertion that Venezuela has a significant role in drug trafficking that harms Americans. U.S. kills 2 aboard alleged drug boat in Pacific, widening Trump's campaign. The president suggested that his administration is preparing to expand its counter-narcotics efforts further to also encompass targets on land. Updated. October 22, 2025 at 7:11 p.m. ED. Today at 7:11 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. 5 minutes. Summary. 734. President Donald Trump fields questions from reporters at the White House this week. Salwan George / The Washington Post. By Alex Horton, Dan Lamott and Noah Robertson. U.S. forces killed 2 people allegedly hauling illicit drugs in the eastern Pacific Ocean off South America, officials said Wednesday, marking an expansion of the Trump administration's deadly counter-narcotics campaign that until now focused on suspected trafficking in the Caribbean Sea. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, writing on social media, said the attack took place sometime Tuesday in international waters along a known narco-trafficking transit route. He did not specify where the attack occurred or identify the victims, saying only that they were terrorists and their boat was known by our intelligence to be involved in illicit narcotic smuggling. Both Colombia and Ecuador, which share a border along the Pacific Ocean, are home to sizable narcotics operations. Neither country's embassy in Washington responded immediately to requests for comment. Overhead video accompanying Hegseth's social media post shows a motorized speedboat plowing through the waves before it is engulfed in a large fireball. His announcement did not indicate what type of military asset delivered the kill shot. He noted, though, that no American personnel were hurt while executing the assignment, which he said President Donald Trump had directed. Follow Trump's second term. Follow. Trump, while speaking later to reporters at the White House, repeated his previous assertion that he has a national security imperative to protect Americans from harmful illicit drugs. He suggested, too, that his administration is preparing to expand the campaign further to also encompass targets on land, though he did not specify when or where that could occur. They'll be coming in by land a little bit more because they're not coming in by boat anymore, the president said. And we will hit them very hard when they come in by land. And they haven't experienced that yet. But now we're totally prepared to do that. Trump indicated that his administration probably would consult with Congress eventually to explain exactly what we're doing when we come to the land. He added, though, we don't have to do that. Democrats have been outspoken in their opposition to Trump's use of military force to target suspected drug traffickers, though their efforts to constrain the president and assert Congress's war powers have so far failed to generate much support among Republicans, who hold the majority in Congress. Icon. Even so, Venezuela's strategic geography has made it an increasingly valuable transit corridor. Its porous borders, limited state control in remote regions, and long-standing ties between criminal networks and armed groups allow trafficking routes to operate with minimal disruption. Smugglers often move shipments by river or through clandestine airstrips before transferring them to boats headed towards Central America or the Caribbean. From there, the cargo is redirected northward toward Mexico or the United States. Analysts say the country's role is less about production and more about logistics, providing safe passage, storage, and protection for cartels seeking to shield their higher-value supply chains. Law enforcement officials in the region warn that the combination of weak governance, corruption, and profitable trafficking lanes has hardened these routes over time. Even crackdowns rarely eliminate the trade, they simply push it to new corridors or encourage traffickers to use smaller, harder-to-detect shipments. Meanwhile, U.S. officials continue to emphasize that the flow of fentanyl, synthesized primarily in Mexico using precursor chemicals, remains the most lethal front in the hemispheric drug crisis. In this landscape, Venezuela plays one link in a much bigger chain, shaped as much by geography as by geopolitics.